Well, hello there. Long time no viddy, Droogs. Thank you, Mr. Kubrick. Today, my tirade is going to be shorter than usual, which I'm sure most of you are so happy to hear. My God, can that guy just go on and on and on? But I won't be going on longer than I have been. So sit back, relax, have a cup of coffee, feed whatever addictions you currently have going, with moderation in mind. I want to talk about some more esoteric topics than as opposed to existential topics. To start with, there are a number of theories coming to us from the somewhat whimsical realm of quantum physics, one of which is really intriguing to me, and that is that reality as we understand it, given that we have a very limited number of senses with which to react or be aware of reality, the idea is that our limited senses create an image from, call it the background radiation from the Big Bang. There are interferences in that matrix. And what we are noticing are simply interferences in that matrix. A slightly different pattern emerges. And then our minds create an analog representation of that interference, which we then project into the real world. In other words, it's not a cup until our mind has processed what that interference means, and then we project that cup into the world, which is mind-blowing. Talk about the whole idea of creating your own reality. You can't top that. Things don't exist until we project them outside of ourselves. A bird is just an interference pattern until our mind gives us an analog representation of that bird, at which point it becomes a bird. Mind-blowing. Makes me want to contemplate choices I have made based on my understanding of interferences in the matrix. Along the same lines, I want to talk about the idea, again, the idea that all of us combined are essentially one aspect of a greater consciousness. Maybe the best way to explain that is that we all have our computers which connect to the internet, and the combined total of all of our computer connections to the internet creates a reality. So I'm a singular input. I'm one node of input to a vast consciousness which is imbued in reality itself. And again, that just kind of gives me shivers, the idea that all of us together are creating this kind of vast consciousness, something that's deeper than any one of us, that's incomprehensible in a way. Brings to mind for me the idea of, okay, well, what really happens when I die? What really happens? Do I just, literally cease to exist in any way? What about the idea that energy is neither created nor destroyed? What happens to the energy that is me upon clinical death? It just goes away? We know that it doesn't dissipate. Makes me think of the question, what happens to me personally when I die, when I have achieved clinical death? There is no more brain function. Do I just cease to exist, like light switch being turned off? It's I don't know. When we think about the idea that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it is converted into other forms of energy. We know that whatever the energy is, me, is not converted to light. It's not converted to heat. It's not converted to vibrations. Where does that energy go? What happens to me when I die? And it opens up all sorts of intriguing questions that, there's no answer for, other than the answers I choose to create an analog representation and put out into the greater reality. So I've been contemplating that, probably because I'm old and my body is falling apart. The concept of immortality is one that plagues most of us throughout our lives. We are intellectually, perhaps, accepting that, well, all good things must end, so someday I must die, and that is the cycle of life. Hail Simba. But the idea that we can accept it intellectually does not prepare us for the emotional baggage that incurs. Where do I go? What happens to me? Am I here for that moment of life? And then there's nothing. There is just nothing. I don't know. It is interesting. I'm not vastly concerned with it, nor do I welcome the idea of my personal death. But I don't reject the idea of my personal death. There are times when I feel like, okay, I've seen everything I needed or wanted to see, so I got my ticket. I'm waiting for the train. I really feel that way. I don't know. Apathy isn't the right word. Just feel like, well, yeah, I've been around the block more times than I care to count. I feel that I've learned whatever I'm supposed to learn, and whether everything I've learned just dies with me or I carry a part of that into some kind of afterlife, who knows? It's going to be a trip either way. Mark Twain had pointed out that the universe had been around for millions of years before he was born, and he was not aware of it. So he assumed that after he died, the universe would continue to go on without him being aware of it. And I'm kind of feeling that way, George Harrison, life goes on within you and without you. Deep meaning in that. We do carry life within us, but there's a life outside of ourselves too, which implies the idea of some kind of community. We need to be aware of the existence of others, and we need to honor the existence of others, of other life forms, of other intelligences, whatever they may be, and wherever we may find them. So, buck up, buckaroos. It's going to be an interesting trip. They say that Steve Jobs' last words were, "Oh, wow." And I'd kind of like to go out on that kind of note. Just like, oh no, help me. Oh no, I don't want to go out in a fit. I don't want to cry. I want to be brave. I just want to face my death with my eyes wide open. Put it that way. I don't want to be drugged. I don't want to be unable to face my death in the final moments. I want to go into it knowingly. Not that I have any control over that. It's going to happen however it happens. Also, very esoteric, it turns out that trees apparently communicate with each other through a system of roots connected to various fungi, and that there is a communication that occurs between trees. Trees are talking to each other, and we're not aware of that. But you are now, because I told you, and I never lie. So trees talk to each other. Plants apparently have some form of non-verbal communication going on. Ants and bees have non-verbal communications going on. A bee comes back to the hive and does this highfalutin fancy dance, and all the other bees know, okay, well, if I fly 100 yards south and then turn slightly to the right, there's a food source. How did they understand that? It's intrinsic to their being. There's no other explanation. Same with ants. Brings to mind, again, got kind of a hive mind. Are we, as sentient beings, part of a larger hive mind? We don't need to be aware of the fact that it's a hive mind. Each of us individually pursuing our own interests and wants and needs contribute to the benefit of all the others around us. I don't know. I find that interesting. You may not. You might be gagging right now. Go ahead, gag. I don't care. I don't care what you do. You can do whatever you want. You're a grown-up. Or at least that's how you want us to think of you. But anyhow, yeah, I've just been thinking these much larger thoughts. Years and years and years ago, when Sputnik was circling the globe, my dad took me out and we were laying on a blanket, and he pointed out Sputnik passing over our heads. Then he started talking about how when we look into the night sky, we're not seeing anything as it is, we're seeing everything as it was. And then he talked about the speed of light and how far away different stars were, so that, if we're looking at the closest star, we're looking at things that happened 4 million years ago. So we never know what's really happening right now, and we never will. Which brings to mind the whole idea of subliminal advertising. In less than a 1/12 of a second, they can flash a word, and our subconscious registers that. And there have been studies that show in movie theaters, they will flash at a 1/12 of a second the word Coke, and suddenly everyone is buying Coke. How does that happen? How can we be aware of something that's a 1/12 of a second long? Blows my mind. We are that close, this close to experiencing exactly what's happening, but we will never get past that 1/12 of a second, which is the time it takes for our mind to process stimuli created in analog, and then we understand what has just happened. But it's always in the past. It is always in the past. We cannot experience right now. We simply can't. Although there are many, including many Eastern philosophies, which say that the only way to experience the now is to stop experiencing everything. Just your mind shuts off and you experience a sense of bliss, which I've experienced in my life. When I was very young, I used to find a quiet spot in the woods and settle down, and through a breathing technique that I didn't invent, but it would happen. Suddenly my breathing would change and I would just bliss out. I would feel in touch with everything, without examining any of it. There was just a feeling of connectedness to everything in the world. And I miss that. I do transcendental meditation, and sometimes, rarely, I can achieve that sense of bliss, that sense of connectedness. But it can only happen when I have shut off all my thoughts, which is weird to me. Experience bliss by not experiencing anything. And maybe that's what death is. Bliss, because we are experiencing nothing. So I think I'm going to wrap it all up. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Do what you can. Share what you can. We're the only ones who can get us out of the situation we're in right now. Try to be kind and love each other and have a good day. Bye-bye, guys.